today as hundreds of illegal migrants are currently crossing the channel in the biggest surge of small boats so far this year. Now, this also comes as figures show that French police allowed 2/3 of migrant crossings to reach Britain, despite Britain sending £700 million to France to stop this. It's turning into a complete French farce. Let's now speak with GB News' Homeland Security editor Mark White, who has this superb exclusive for us today. Mark, here we go again. 500, I believe, now crossing the channel today. That's already a record. 2026 has already surpassed 2025 and 2024. More waiting on the beaches. And you've got some incredible figures for us about just how ineffective the French police are.
Yes, I mean, it's all still going on in the channel at the moment. So the latest we can bring you is that two more Border Force vessels are heading back to Ramsgate with yet more migrants. So the figure, we believe, will top 600 today in the winter. I mean, that's what is so unusual about what we're seeing out there in the channel. These are the kind of days in terms of this surge of 600 odd crossing the channel that we wouldn't normally see until the summer months. A couple of hundred during the winter months would be an excessively busy day. And as you mentioned in your intro there, Martin, we're at the stage where we're actually now ahead of the total that arrived at this point last year and indeed the year before in 2024. We can bring you some exclusive video on board one of the boats that made that journey across the channel today. They set out under the cover of darkness. You can see them there, and as the camera tilts round occasionally to them, there's thumbs up, there's jubilation from these migrants at the fact that they're headed to the UK as they wave at the camera there, taking selfies, of course, to document their journey, an illegal journey, a journey that is one that is, of course, outlawed, not going through designated ports into the UK. But here they are, as I say, just one boat out of more than 10 boats that set off from French beaches this morning, headed to the UK, Martin.
And Mark White, it gets worse, because I believe your intel has told you today there are at least 4,500 additional immigrants just queuing on the beaches of Calais and Dunkirk to be next all aboard the boats, all aboard the Star Marder. And then, incredibly, the returns, the numbers of craft that the French actually stop. There's the high figure they give us, which I believe is 22,476. But Mark White, you think the actual number that the French are physically prevented from leaving is a fraction of that?
Yeah, those figures are misleading. I don't know if it's deliberately misleading, but they are misleading. More than 22,000, we're told, is the number of small boat migrants who were stopped, is the phraseology that's used by the French, from reaching the UK. Well, that is not true in terms of the numbers reaching the UK. It's nowhere near that. Certainly 22,000 migrants didn't reach the UK by a number of for a number of different reasons. So one of the reasons was the unreliability of these engines, these small boat outboard motors that the vessels use to drive them across the channel. They're constantly breaking down. So multiple vessels over the past year or so have had to turn back because of engine failure. Also, they ram the boat so full that even if the engine doesn't fail, it's not powerful enough to push it through the water to get to the UK. And then there's the weather. When the weather suddenly deteriorates, that means some boats don't make it through and have to turn back. And then the French escort patrols move in, take the migrants off these boats and return them to France. But that is not in any way the same as the French police actually intervening and stopping the migrants from getting on the boats, getting out to sea in the first place. And my understanding is that it's a very tiny proportion of that 22,000 plus figure. high hundreds, maybe 1,000 or two, even that could be generous in terms of actual interventions on the beach. Most of these boats get into the water knowing that once they're in the water, if their boats hold up, if they don't break down, they are headed to UK waters and then will be picked up by the UK authorities and enter our asylum system. And I think what this really does is just cement in the minds of so many people that we should not be giving the French £700 million in additional funding for their border security if that is not really seeing any sort of dividends in terms of those that are stopping from leaving the beaches in the first place.